what do you have in place before you recruit? And it's a two-parter. So what do you have in place before you recruit somebody in your business? And the second one is, what process do you have for recruiting people?
So just on this topic when it comes to team in general, right, I really think of team as an asset for a business. And I know not people will give it that criteria often or think of it in that way, but I really think of like a team is so critically important. Business is a team sport. Even if you're in a very like low team business, you might have a couple of staff, you're probably dealing with other people, and that's where the team sportness comes into it. So business is a team sport. Now, the second thing I go from that is like, I find that most business owners go for cheap. It's really interesting where they're always looking for the cheapest hiring option rather than the right hiring option. And I think the first thing I really addressed is like, what's the best option, right? I don't want to necessarily fill the team with cheap options. I want to look at it and go, well, a lot of the problems that business owners end up with is because they don't have high quality team members who can solve problems for them or have things not turn into fires. The impact of hiring the wrong people, low quality people, not recruiting properly, all ends up that you end up putting out fires all day. And my experience, and Grant, I wonder if you back me up on this one, is like we've got some, I would say I'm very fortunate to have such a strong team, but the A players we have are twice as good as the B players that you could potentially hire.
Totally.
So like, and where I'm kind of going with this is more to the idea of like how I think about it beforehand of like, if I'm thinking about it in the idea that I've got to have an A player because it's going to cost me twice as much to have two B players to do the same role, or that this is a team sport and it's like, if I'm in the 90s and I'm running the NBA, I want Michael Jordan. How many of my problems go away if I've got Michael Jordan on the court? A lot.
Yeah.
So they're the things that I put into this team question here. So personally, then going into the idea of like, well, what do I like to have in place beforehand? Number one is some cash buffers. When you're hiring new people can be expensive, and getting them up to speed to actually like be a income producing asset in a business, because I think of them as an asset, that can take time, right? So if you've got a new person coming on, I don't expect them to be at 100% efficiency from day one. Like there's a ramp up. So that's number one. Number two is for beforehand, I would really think about just like really well defined what someone's actually going to be doing. I've had like terrible experiences, and I hate to admit I've done this, where I've like hired someone and the role's a bit vague, and I'm like, they'll kind of grow into it. They'll work it out. We'll define it as they go. I'm like,
oh no, Charlie, I interviewed this great person. I just think they're a really good person. They fit in the business quite well. Yeah, but what would they do? They're just a great person. We'll figure it out.
It never really works. Have you ever had it work?
Never.
I've never seen it work.
So I'm going to go back to a couple of points that you've said before we continue on, because the next stage from this is just the recruitment process, because I think you hit on three killer things. I got a story for every single one.
Lay it down.
So the first one, which is like treat and think of your employees as assets. So firstly, in my SEO agency, I have gone on record as being interviewed on Chris Ducker's for his book, Virtual Freedom or whatever it is. So I've got I'm part of the bonus series where I've gone on and said, hey, when I recruit people, I go for people with no skill, because I've had challenges trying to retrain them on what to do. And so what I did was I actually went for people with no skill, and then I had a great training process and great processes in order for them to execute. You know what's just easier than that, Charlie? Just recruiting people that are good at what they do.
Do you know this, like hire on attitude and then train them?
Yeah,
I actually think that's terrible advice. I think hire on someone who's done it before for 3 years in a similar company to yours.
Yeah, so I had a mentor tell me, which is like I evaluate two things, like their willpower and their skill set was the two. And they're willing to recruit on willpower because they can educate skill set. And I'm like, but why wouldn't you just have both? Like, why wouldn't you pay a little bit more and just have both?
That's such a good point. It's not an and or, isn't it? Like someone can have a great attitude and experience. It can
totally
happen.
That's what you're looking for. That's what you're looking for. So to go for that, like I was not treating my employees as assets. I was treating them as like a commodity that could be retrained and transactional and all these fun things. But in in hindsight, and it happened after the fact, just recruiting people who were good at what they do would have just helped me 10 times, because what you touched on was all of these random questions where they don't understand the context of what they're doing because they were never sort of brought in and the training didn't factor it in and all these things. They were just going from the top to bottom of a process and just only focusing on this one thing. When a curveball came at them that wasn't outlined in that straight line that I'd prepared, it was like, what do I do? Oh, what do you mean you don't know what to do? Well, you only told me to do this. And this thing zigged when it should have zagged. What do I do when it zigs? I'm like, oh my gosh. Yes.
Do you notice? I've seen this many times and even done it. And I will preface this: we have some people in our organization that came on as like junior writers that have just like now they're managers, and it's been amazing to watch them excel and learn and grow. And it's like it's phenomenal. It does happen. But I will say this: I've seen many business owners like almost like try and promote people up into roles rather than hire people that have done it before. And I think that at times they don't necessarily measure the opportunity cost because there's so much learning. Like it's going to take that person 12 months to get good at that role, where they could have had 12 months of someone executing it based on their past experience. Like you can go very fast when you're bringing people in your organization like that.
Hey, fellow business owner, if this topic and value-packed short video has resonated with you at all, and you want to dive deeper into being a full stack business owner, check out the full episode by clicking the link on your screen or in the description right now.